All right, today we're diving into a really powerful idea from the world of design. This idea that breaking the rules can actually lead to the most profound, most moving creations. Yeah, we're talking about a full-on rebellion in form.
So, let's kick things off with a question that really is at the heart of everything we're talking about today. What if the most incredible transformative creations don't come from following the rules? Ticking all the boxes? What if they come from having the guts to just shatter them completely?
Now, when you hear rebellion, you might think of something angry, right? Something destructive. But this kind of creative rebellion, well, it actually comes from a totally different place. As we're going to see, it's sparked by something much more pure, almost like a childlike curiosity. Okay, so the core idea here is a complete 180 in how you look at things. Think about it. Instead of seeing a space, like a room or a building, as just a static box, a container for our stuff, this way of thinking sees it as a living, breathing thing. It's an entity that has its own energy, shaped by tension and intention, and it actually interacts with us.
And you know where this idea really comes to life in the most dramatic way possible? In an architectural movement that just completely turned tradition on its head. So let's dive into what's called Deconstructivism's spatial revolution.
So what is deconstructivism anyway? Well, it was this architectural movement that basically exploded onto the scene back in the 80s. And its whole goal, its whole reason for being, was to challenge everything we thought we knew about what a building should look like. It threw out harmony and order and instead gave us these fragmented, asymmetrical forms that are just buzzing with tension and energy.
And I mean, the contrast here is just night and day. You've got traditional architecture on one side, right? All about symmetry, harmony, everything neat and predictable. And then deconstructivism comes along and just chucks all of that right out the window. It's all about asymmetry, tension, fragmentation, and my favorite part, surprise.
And there are a couple of names you absolutely have to know when we talk about this. The pioneers who really took this rebellious spirit and ran with it were Frank Gehry and the duo Herzog and Meuron. These were the folks who took all these wild, abstract ideas and actually built them.
And you can see their impact in some truly iconic buildings. Just think of Frank Gehry's Guggenheim in Bilbao. I mean, those wild, twisting titanium curves, it looks like it's alive, constantly moving, and it just completely shatters the skyline. Or look at Herzog and Meuron's Tate Modern. They took this old power station and turned it into something incredible, blending the old industrial vibe with something totally new. It just begs you to come inside and explore its massive, weird, wonderful spaces.
But here's the really interesting part. This whole rebellion thing, it wasn't just happening in architecture. Not at all. It was actually part of a much bigger cultural shift, this kind of universal restlessness that was bubbling up in all kinds of art.
I mean, think about it. The seeds for this were planted way earlier. You go back to 1907, you've got Picasso completely shattering the idea of a portrait. Then in 1917, Marcel Duchamp puts a urinal in a gallery, calls it Fountain, and basically makes everyone's head explode wondering what art even is. And a few years later, James Joyce just completely dismantles the traditional novel with Ulysses. See the pattern? They were all rebels in their own right, pushing back against the rules. So that's the common thread, you see. It doesn't matter if it's a building, a painting, or a book. It's this deep-seated rebellion against the way things are supposed to be. And they all use this feeling of tension to create an experience that, well, it just sticks with you. It's something that stays in your head long after you've left the building or closed the book. Which brings us to the real why behind all this rule-breaking. Because, it's not just about being weird for the sake of being weird. The real goal is to create these deeply emotional experiences. It's all about making you feel something. There's this fantastic personal story from the source material that just hits this point home perfectly. The designer saw this playful, free-form sketch made by a child and used that as the inspiration for a whole layout. And the result? It wasn't just a cool-looking space. It was so powerful, so emotionally resonant that it actually moved the clients to tears of joy. Just incredible.
And look, this idea that unconventional design hits us on an emotional level, it's not just a feeling or a one-off story. It's actually backed up by research. Studies in design psychology have found that a surprisingly large number of us feel a stronger bond with designs that break the mold.
How large? Well, that number is 60%. Yeah, a full 60% of people, according to the Journal of Design Psychology, report having a stronger emotional connection to unconventional designs. It's almost like our brains are hardwired to light up when we see something unexpected, something that challenges us and makes us look at the world in a new way.
So that's really the ultimate goal here, isn't it? The whole point of this emotive design is to turn a building from just bricks and mortar into a narrative, into a story. It's about creating something that doesn't just give you shelter, but actually stirs your soul. It's an invitation to have a personal, totally human reaction.
Okay, so what does all of this mean for you? For us? Look, this way of thinking isn't just for famous architects or big-shot artists. It's a mindset that any of us can bring to our own work, to our own passions. It's all about finding your creative rebellion.
Because when you get right down to it, creativity is a kind of rebellion. It's this delicate dance, right? A constant back and forth between total chaos and rigid structure. You lean too far one way, and the whole thing collapses. But if you can find that sweet spot, that perfect balance, that's when you create something absolutely extraordinary.
So, the path to that kind of innovation, it really boils down to a few key things. First, embrace that messy, wild, childlike curiosity. Don't shut it down. Then, take that energy and refine it with purpose. And finally, weave emotion right into the fabric of whatever you're creating. That way, you're not just making a thing, you're creating a living, breathing experience.
And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. Let's forget about giant museums and famous paintings for a second. Just think about your own craft, your own passions. How do you rebel? What are the ways, big or small, that you break the rules to create something genuinely new?